hand landed on Zareen Cole's arm at exactly 6:17 p.m. Not a tap, not a suggestion, a grip. She felt the pressure through the fabric of her crimson shirt, firm enough to guide, firm enough to warn. The marble floor beneath her sneakers had been imported from Italy. She'd chosen it herself. Paid for it with money she'd earned serving tacos from a food truck parked outside this very building 14 years ago. Now security was removing her from it. "Ma'am, we need you to leave." The voice belonged to Cole Reyes, head of security, 6'2", shoulders like a linebacker, a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. His uniform was black, crisp, and carried the kind of authority that made people obey without question. Zareen didn't move. Around them, the restaurant hummed with Friday evening energy. Glasses clinked. Silverware scraped porcelain. Low laughter rolled across tables draped in white linen. The air smelled like seared duck and expensive wine, like money trying to taste like culture. She'd built this. Every exposed brick wall, every Edison bulb hanging from copper fixtures, every handwritten wine label in the cellar below. This place had her fingerprints on it, literally and legally, and right now it wanted her gone. "Did you hear me?" Cole's grip tightened slightly. Zareen turned her head just enough to meet his eyes. Her voice came out calm, steady, the kind of calm that takes years to master. "I heard you. Then let's not make this difficult." Difficult. That word always showed up in moments like this. It placed the burden on her. It made her presence the problem. It turned her refusal to disappear into an act of aggression. She glanced toward the front desk. Blaine Whitmore stood there, arms crossed, salt and pepper beard trimmed to perfection, navy suit tailored within an inch of its life. He looked like someone who'd never been told no by anyone who mattered. His gaze swept over Zareen once more, dismissive, already moving on to the next guest. 3 minutes earlier, she'd watched him greet a white couple in cargo shorts and baseball caps. He'd laughed at something the man said, offered them champagne on the house, called them by their first names even though they were walk-ins. When Zareen stepped forward, his smile died. "This is a private reservation-only evening," Blaine had said, voice flat. "We're fully booked." She'd tilted her head. "That's interesting, because I have a table." His eyes narrowed. "Ma'am, please don't cause a scene." The couple in cargo shorts glanced over. A woman at the bar pulled out her phone. Another guest whispered something to her date, and they both turned to watch. Zareen felt it then, that familiar tightness in her chest, the heat crawling up her neck, the weight of 1,000 small humiliations pressing down on her shoulders, each one invisible to everyone except the person carrying them. She didn't raise her voice, didn't curse, didn't cry. She just asked one question. "I'd like to speak with your manager." Blaine's jaw tightened. "I am the manager." Then he'd motioned to security. Now Cole's hand was on her arm, and the room had gone quiet in that specific way. Rooms go quiet when something uncomfortable is happening and no one wants to be involved. Zareen looked around. White linen, crystal stemware. Exposed brick she'd personally approved during the renovation. A wine list she'd spent 6 months curating. A brand she'd built from sweat, loans, and the kind of discipline most people only read about. She was being escorted out of her own legacy. "Before you touch me again," Zareen said softly, "can you tell me who owns this restaurant?" Cole hesitated, just for a second. His hand loosened slightly, uncertainty flickering across his face. Blaine stepped closer, voice sharp. "Ownership doesn't concern you." Then he laughed. It wasn't a chuckle. It was a sharp, dismissive bark of sound that cut through the air like a slap. The kind of laugh that said, "You're not even worth explaining this to." That laugh was the moment, the turning point, the thing Zareen would remember later when she was lying awake at 2 a.m., replaying every second of this night in her head. Because Blaine didn't know. No one in this room knew, not the guests filming on their phones, not the hostess pretending to look at the reservation book, not the servers hovering near the kitchen doors, watching with wide eyes. None of them knew that Zareen had spent the last 6 months arriving exactly like this. Quiet, anonymous, dressed down, watching. She'd heard the whispers, seen the patterns, Black customers redirected to the bar instead of tables. Reservations mysteriously disappearing. Staff using coded language when they thought no one important was listening. She'd given them rope, and tonight they were hanging themselves with it. Cole's grip tightened again. "Ma'am, I'm asking you nicely." Zareen reached into her pocket. Every head in the room swiveled. A few people gasped. Cole's other hand moved to his belt, instinct taking over. She pulled out her phone, unlocked it with her thumb, typed one word, "Now." She hit send. Cole relaxed slightly, but his hand stayed on her arm. "Whatever you think you're doing—" "I'm leaving," Zareen interrupted. Her voice was steady, too steady, the kind of steady that comes from practice, from years of swallowing rage and turning it into something useful. She let Cole guide her toward the door. The crowd parted. Some looked away. Others kept filming. A woman near the window whispered to her husband, and he shook his head, mouth pressed into a thin line. Zareen felt every step. The marble was cold under her feet. The air conditioning blew across her skin. The music, smooth jazz, something expensive, played on like nothing was happening. At the door, Cole finally released her arm. Blaine called out from behind the desk, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Thank you for your cooperation." Zareen turned, looked him dead in the eye, said nothing. Then she pushed open the door and stepped outside. The street was warm, humid, thick with the smell of exhaust and grilled meat from a food cart down the block. Traffic rushed past. A group of tourists laughed on the corner, oblivious. Zareen pulled the newsboy cap lower over her braids, checked her phone. One new message. On the way, 3 minutes. She leaned against the brick wall and waited. Inside, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see the restaurant returning to normal. Guests going back to their meals. Servers moving between tables. Blaine straightening his tie. Saying something to the hostess that made her laugh. Business as usual. Zareen's phone buzzed again. 2 minutes. She took a slow breath. Let it out even slower. This wasn't anger. Anger was loud, messy, reactive. This was something else. Something colder. Something that had been building for 6 months. Her phone buzzed a third time. Pulling up now. Zareen pushed off the wall, smoothed her shirt, adjusted her cap one last time. Then she walked back toward the entrance. The doors swung open before she reached them. 3 people stepped out onto the sidewalk. A woman in a charcoal suit, leather folder tucked under one arm. A younger man with a tablet, stylus moving rapidly across the screen. And a third figure, older, gray-haired, with the kind of calm authority that makes people straighten their spines without realizing it. Roland Ashcroft, financial auditor. The woman nodded once at Zareen. "Ready?" Zareen didn't smile. Didn't need to. She just turned back toward the restaurant doors and said one word. "Yes. Have you ever been judged before anyone knew your name? Drop a comment and let me know your story." The doors swung open with a whisper of hydraulic hinges. Zareen walked back in first. The hostess looked up, confusion flickering across her face. Her hand hovered over the reservation tablet, frozen mid-scroll. Behind her, a server carrying a tray of oysters slowed his steps, eyes darting between Zareen and the 3 people following her inside. Cole Reyes moved forward instinctively, muscle memory kicking in. "Ma'am, I already asked you to—" "Stop!" The voice belonged to the woman in the charcoal suit. She didn't yell. Didn't need to. The word landed like a gavel. Cole stopped. His hand dropped from his belt. His jaw worked like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. The woman stepped past Zareen, heels clicking on the marble. "Remove your hand from my client." Client. The word hung in the air for 3 full seconds. Then the room started to understand. A guest near the bar leaned forward, phone already recording. A couple at a corner table exchanged glances. Someone whispered, "Wait, what's happening?" Blaine Whitmore appeared from the back hallway, irritation etched into every line of his face. "Excuse me, this is a private—" He saw Roland Ashcroft. His words died mid-sentence. His face went pale. Not the pale of surprise, the pale of recognition, the pale of someone who just realized they're standing on a trap door. Roland didn't smile, didn't speak, just held Blaine's gaze with the kind of patience that comes from knowing you've already won. Zareen reached up. Slowly, pulled off her newsboy cap. Her braids fell loose around her shoulders. The hostess gasped. A server dropped a fork. It clattered against a plate, the sound impossibly loud in the sudden silence. Zareen shook her head once, letting her hair settle. She didn't say anything yet. Didn't need to. The shift in the room was already happening. Power wasn't about who talked first. It was about who everyone was looking at, and every single person in that restaurant was looking at her. Blaine's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I don't understand. The woman in the charcoal suit stepped forward, leather folder in hand. My name is Simone Laverne. I represent Zareen Cole, sole majority owner of this establishment. The words hit like a freight train. A woman at the bar choked on her wine. The couple in cargo shorts stared, champagne flutes forgotten. Someone near the window said, "Oh my God," loud enough for the whole room to hear. Zareen finally spoke. Her voice was calm, steady, the same voice she'd used when Blaine dismissed her, when Cole grabbed her arm, when Blaine laughed in her face. My name is Zareen Cole, and as of this moment, this establishment is under internal review. Blaine stumbled backward. His shoulder hit the edge of the host stand. He caught himself, but barely. That's not... You can't... Simone raised one hand. Mr. Whitmore, I'd advise you to stop talking. Cole Reyes looked like someone had punched him in the gut. His eyes darted between Zareen and the doors, like he was calculating whether he could leave without anyone noticing. He couldn't, because half the guests were filming now, phones up, screens glowing, recording every second. This wasn't just a confrontation anymore. It was documentation. Zareen walked past the hostess, past Blaine, past the bar. She moved through her own restaurant like she was seeing it for the first time. And in a way, she was. For 6 months, she'd watched this place from the outside, observed how it treated people who didn't look like the ones in the glossy promotional photos, listened to complaints from black diners who'd been told the wait was 2 hours, even when empty tables sat in plain view. She'd come in wearing jeans and sneakers, no jewelry, no designer bag, just another black woman trying to get a table. And every single time, she'd been turned away. Not with slurs, not with violence, with policy, with politeness, with the kind of rejection that left no visible bruises, but carved deep anyway. This is a private event tonight. We're fully booked. Have you tried the bistro down the street? Codes, barriers dressed up as customer service. She stopped in the center of the dining room. Guests stared. Some looked guilty. Others looked curious. A few looked angry, like they resented having their Friday evening interrupted by reality. Zareen turned to face Blaine. How many black guests have you seated in the last 3 months? Blaine's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Take your time, Zareen said. I'll wait. Simone stepped beside her, opening the leather folder. According to reservation logs, demographic tracking, and internal complaint records, black guests represented less than 4% of total covers between August and October. She pulled out a sheet of paper, held it up so the room could see the highlighted numbers. This neighborhood is 42% black. The silence was suffocating. A man near the window stood up. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know. Zareen looked at him. He was white, mid-50s, wearing a polo shirt and khakis. He looked genuinely distressed. I believe you, she said quietly, but that's part of the problem. She turned back to Blaine. You didn't just deny me entry tonight. You denied every black guest who didn't fit your fantasy of what this place should be. Blaine finally found his voice. I was following company standards, image, clientele standards. Whose standards? Zareen's voice sharpened. I never approved any policy that turned away paying customers based on how they looked. She gestured around the room. This restaurant was supposed to be for everyone. That was the whole point. Simone flipped to another page. We have documented complaints dating back 4 months, ignored reservations, racial profiling disguised as dress code enforcement, staff referring to black guests as off-brand clientele in internal group chats. A server near the kitchen doors went pale. Zareen's gaze swept across the staff. Who here knew? No one answered. Who here saw what was happening and said nothing? Still silence. Zareen's chest tightened. Not with anger. with something worse: disappointment. She'd hired some of these people herself, trained them, trusted them, and they'd let this happen. Silence is not neutrality, she said quietly. It's endorsement. Cole Reyes shifted his weight. His hand twitched toward his pocket, then stopped. Ms. Cole, I was just doing my job. Zareen looked at him. Really looked at him. He was young, maybe 26. Probably put himself through security training. Probably needed this job. Your job, Zareen said slowly, was to keep people safe, not to remove them because someone decided they didn't belong. Cole's jaw tightened. He looked down. Roland Ashcroft finally spoke. His voice was deep, measured, the voice of someone who'd spent decades watching businesses rise and fall. This review will determine whether operational practices align with ownership values. Staff found to have participated in discriminatory behavior will face immediate termination. Those who remain silent will undergo retraining and probationary evaluation. He glanced at Blaine. And those who enforce such practices will be removed. Blaine's face flushed red. You can't do this. I have a contract. I have rights. Simone smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. So do the guests you turned away. She pulled out another document. Your employment agreement includes a clause prohibiting discriminatory practices. You violated that clause repeatedly and systematically. Blaine's hands curled into fists. This is insane. I made this place profitable. I brought in high-end clientele. You made it exclusive, Zareen interrupted. There's a difference. She stepped closer, close enough to see the sweat beading on his forehead. You thought I wouldn't notice because I didn't look the part. You thought ownership meant someone who looked like you, dressed like you, spoke like you. Her voice dropped. You were wrong. Blaine opened his mouth, then closed it, because there was nothing left to say. The room stayed silent. Guests watched. Servers watched. Even the music seemed quieter, like the building itself was holding its breath. Zareen turned toward the front doors. They were still open. Outside, the city moved on. Cars honked. People walked past. Life continued, indifferent to the reckoning happening inside this one restaurant. But inside, everything had changed. Zareen pulled her phone from her pocket, checked the time. 6:27 p.m., 10 minutes since she'd sent that text. 10 minutes since everything flipped. She looked at Simone. How long until the full audit is complete? 72 hours. Zareen nodded. Then we have work to do. She turned back to the room. This restaurant will remain open. Guests who wish to stay may stay. Those who wish to leave may leave. But understand this. What you witnessed tonight wasn't an anomaly. It was a system. She paused. Let the words settle. And systems don't change unless someone forces them to. A woman near the bar started clapping, slowly at first, then louder. Another guest joined in, then another. Within seconds, half the room was applauding. Zareen didn't smile, didn't bow. She just stood there, holding the weight of what came next. Because accountability wasn't a moment, it was a process, and the hardest part was just beginning. Simone leaned closer, voice low. We need to make decisions, now. Zareen nodded, turned toward Blaine, and said the words she'd been preparing for 6 months. Effective immediately, your employment is terminated. Chapter 3. Blaine didn't move. For 3 full seconds, he just stood there, staring at Zareen like she'd spoken a language he didn't understand. Then his face twisted. You can't fire me. His voice cracked. I have a contract. I have protections. You can't just... I can. Zareen's voice didn't rise, didn't waver. And I am. Simone stepped forward, pulling another document from the folder. Your contract includes a termination clause for violation of company policy. Discriminatory practices fall under that clause. You have 30 minutes to collect your personal belongings under supervision. Blaine's hands shook. This is ridiculous. This is final. Roland Ashcroft's voice cut through the room like a blade. Security will escort you out when you're ready. Every head turned toward Cole Reyes. Cole stood frozen, caught between 2 impossible choices. His job had been to follow Blaine's orders. Now his job was to remove him. Zareen saw the conflict on his face, saw the way his shoulders tensed, the way his fingers flexed. She didn't wait for him to decide. Cole, you're dismissed for the evening. Simone's team will handle security for the next 72 hours. Cole's eyes widened. Ms. Cole, Go home, Zareen said quietly. We'll talk Monday. Relief and shame warred across his face. He nodded once, then walked toward the exit, shoulders hunched like he was carrying something heavy. The doors closed behind him. Blaine watched him go, then turned back to Zareen. You're making a mistake. The only mistake, Zareen said, was not doing this sooner. She gestured toward the back hallway. 30 minutes. Simone's associate will supervise. The younger man with the tablet stepped forward, stylus ready. This way, Mr. Whitmore. Blaine didn't move. The room held its breath. For a moment, Zareen thought he might refuse. Might make a scene. Might force this to escalate into something uglier. Then he exhaled, long and slow, defeat settling into his bones. He straightened his tie, smoothed his jacket, tried to salvage some fragment of dignity. This isn't over, he muttered. Zareen met his eyes. Yes, it is. Blaine turned and walked toward the hallway, the associate following 3 steps behind. The moment he disappeared from view, the room exhaled. Conversations erupted. Guests leaned across tables, voices rising. Phones buzzed with texts and posts. Someone near the bar laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. Zareen stayed still, centered. This wasn't the end. It was barely the beginning. She turned to the remaining staff, servers, hostess, bartender, sous chef hovering in the kitchen doorway, all of them staring at her with expressions ranging from shock to fear to something that might have been hope. I need everyone's attention, Zareen said. The room quieted again. She walked toward the host stand, pulled out her phone, connected it to the restaurant's display screen mounted on the wall. The screen flickered to life. A spreadsheet appeared, rows and columns, dates and timestamps, highlighted cells in red. This, Zareen said, is a record of every reservation made in the last 6 months. She swiped. Another screen. Screenshots of group chats. Blaine, 0914. Table 12 looks off-brand. Redirect to bar. Hostess, 0914. Got it. Server, 0921. Another walk-in asking for a table. You want me to say we're full? Blaine, 0921. Check the vibe first. The room went cold. A server near the window covered her mouth. The hostess looked down, face burning. Zareen swiped again. Video clips. Security footage from the front entrance. A black couple in business attire being turned away while a white couple in gym clothes was seated immediately. A black family with reservations being told their table wasn't ready, then watching it sit empty for 20 minutes. A black woman, well-dressed, polite, being told the kitchen was closed at 7:15 p.m., while other guests were served until 10. Zareen let the footage play, let it speak for itself. When it ended, she turned back to the staff. How many of you saw this happening? No one answered. How many of you knew? A server raised her hand slowly, then another, then the bartender. Zareen nodded. Thank you for being honest. She looked at the hostess. Did you know? The hostess's eyes filled with tears. I thought I'd lose my job if I said anything. You might have, Zareen said quietly, but you definitely lost something by staying silent. She let that sit for a moment. Then she pulled up another document on the screen, a list of names. These are the staff members being terminated effective immediately. She read them aloud. 5 names, including the hostess. The hostess sobbed. Zareen didn't look away. This isn't cruelty. This is consequence. She turned to the servers who'd raised their hands. You 3 will remain under probationary status. You'll undergo bias training, and you'll report directly to the new general manager once they're hired. One of the servers nodded, relief flooding her face. Zareen addressed the full room now, guests and staff. I'm not asking anyone to be perfect. I'm asking you to be accountable. She gestured toward the footage still frozen on the screen. This didn't happen because of one bad person. It happened because of a culture. And culture is built by everyone in the room? A guest near the back stood up. He was older, white, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. Ms. Cole, I want to apologize. I had no idea this was happening. Zareen looked at him. Why would you? You were never the one being turned away. The man flinched, but he didn't sit down. What can I do? Notice, Zareen said. Pay attention, and when you see something wrong, say something. The man nodded slowly, then sat down. Simone stepped beside Zareen, voice low. We need to address the rest of the staff, make decisions about leadership structure. Zareen checked her phone. 6:43 p.m., 26 minutes since she walked back in. It felt like hours. She turned to Roland. What's the timeline for interim management? I can have someone here by Monday, Roland said, but you'll need to make the final hire. Zareen nodded. She'd known this was coming. Rebuilding wasn't just about firing the guilty. It was about replacing them with people who understood the mission, people who saw all guests as worth serving. She addressed the room again. For the next 72 hours, this restaurant will operate under audit. New management will be in place by Monday. If you're still employed here, you'll receive an email with next steps. She paused. If you're not, you'll receive severance information and a recommendation to seek employment elsewhere. Professional, clean, no room for argument. A server raised her hand. Ms. Cole, what happens to the guests here tonight? Do we still serve them? Zareen smiled for the first time all evening. It was small but real. Yes, give them the best service you've ever given. Show them what this place is supposed to be. The server nodded and hurried toward the kitchen. The room started moving again, staff returning to their stations, guests settling back into their meals, the hum of conversation rising. But something had shifted. The air felt different, lighter maybe, or heavier. Zareen couldn't tell. She walked toward the bar, sat down on a stool. The bartender approached cautiously. Can I get you anything? Zareen looked at the shelves behind him. Bottles she'd selected herself, labels she'd tasted and approved. Water, she said. Just water. The bartender poured it into a crystal glass, slid it across the bar. Zareen took a sip. Cold, clean. Simple. For the first time in 6 months, she allowed herself to breathe. Simone sat down beside her. You did the right thing. Zareen set the glass down. Doesn't feel right yet. It will. Zareen wasn't sure about that, but she didn't argue. Roland appeared on her other side. The audit will be thorough. If there are more issues, we'll find them. Zareen nodded. I know. She looked around the restaurant, at the exposed bricks she'd chosen, the light fixtures she'd installed, the wine list she'd curated. This place was supposed to be a dream. Instead, it had become a test, and she'd almost failed it. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. Saw the video. You're a hero. Another buzz. Unknown. Just posted to Twitter. 50K views already. Zareen closed her eyes. This was going viral, which meant the whole world was about to have an opinion. Simone saw her expression. We'll handle the media. You focus on the restaurant. Zareen opened her eyes. What if I can't fix this? You already did, Simone said. Now you just have to rebuild. Zareen took another sip of water. Across the room, a black couple walked in through the front doors. They looked nervous, hesitant. The interim host, a server who'd stepped up when the original hostess left, greeted them with a warm smile. Welcome. Do you have a reservation? The couple exchanged glances. No, we saw what happened. Wanted to support. The host beamed. Right this way. She led them to a table by the window. Zareen watched them sit down, watched them relax, watched them look around the restaurant like they finally belonged there. And for the first time all night, something in her chest loosened. This was why she'd built this place. Not for exclusivity, for belonging. She stood up, smoothed her shirt, adjusted her braids. Simone raised an eyebrow. Where are you going? To work, Zareen said. She walked across the restaurant, stopped at the couple's table. They looked up, startled. Welcome, Zareen said. Your meal tonight is on the house. The woman's eyes widened. Ms. Cole, Thank you. Zareen smiled. Thank you for coming. She moved to the next table, then the next, greeting guests, checking in, making sure everyone felt seen. This was her restaurant, and she was taking it back, one table at a time. Behind her, the front doors opened again. More guests walked in, then more. Word was spreading. The restaurant that had turned people away was now welcoming them home. Zareen returned to the bar. Simone handed her the phone. The screen showed a video. The moment she'd removed her cap. The moment she'd revealed who she was. The caption read, "Black woman denied entry to her own restaurant, fires entire staff." This is what accountability looks like. Comments flooded in, thousands of them. Some supportive, some critical, some racist, some celebratory. Zareen handed the phone back. "I don't need to read them." "Good," Simone said, "because there are about to be a lot more." Zareen's phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from a number she recognized. Her lawyer. She answered. "Talk to me." "We've got a problem," the lawyer said. "Blaine's threatening to sue." Zareen wasn't surprised. "For what?" "Wrongful termination, defamation. He's claiming you set him up." Zareen looked at the screen still displaying the evidence. The chats, the footage, the patterns. "Let him try," she said. "Zareen, we have documentation. We have witnesses. We have a pattern of behavior spanning months." The lawyer sighed. "I'll prepare a response, but this is going to get messy." "It already is," Zareen said. "Let me know what you need." She hung up. Simone was watching her. "You okay?" Zareen didn't answer right away, because she didn't know. This was supposed to be the moment of victory, the reveal, the reckoning, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like war, and she'd just fired the first shot. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. "Unknown. You're going to regret this." Zareen stared at the message, then deleted it, turned off her phone, and walked back into her restaurant. Because whatever came next, she'd face it the same way she'd face tonight. With receipts, with dignity, and with the unshakable knowledge that she'd done the right thing. Even if the cost was still being calculated. The clock on the wall read 7:02 p.m., 45 minutes since she'd been denied entry. 45 minutes since everything changed. Zareen looked around the restaurant one more time. Guests were eating, laughing, relaxing. Staff were working, serving, rebuilding. And somewhere in the back office, Blaine Whitmore was packing his things. It wasn't over, but it was beginning. And Zareen Cole wasn't going anywhere. What would you do if you discovered your own business was discriminating against people like you? Tell me in the comments. Chapter 4. The folder hit the bar top with a sharp slap. Zareen opened it without ceremony. Inside, plastic sleeves held printed screenshots, highlighted spreadsheets, annotated receipts. 6 months of documentation stacked in chronological order. She pulled out the first page, held it up so the remaining staff could see. A reservation record from August 12th. Guest name, Kendra Matthews. Party of 4. Confirmed at 7:30 p.m. Status, canceled by staff at 7:15 p.m. Reason listed, no-show. Zareen's voice cut through the murmur of conversation. Kendra Matthews called 3 times that night. She was standing outside the restaurant at 7:20. She never got seated. She set the page down, pulled out another. Marcus and Tiana Reed. Anniversary dinner. Reservation made 2 weeks in advance. Turned away at the door because their confirmation email couldn't be found in the system. Another page. Darius Hampton walked in at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday, told the wait was 90 minutes, watched a white couple walk in 10 minutes later and get seated immediately. She kept going. Name after name, date after date, pattern after pattern. The guests still in the restaurant leaned forward. Some pulled out their phones again, not to record now, but to take notes, to remember. A woman near the window raised her hand. "How did you get all of this?" Zareen met her eyes. "I asked, I listened, and I kept receipts." She pulled out a stack of printed emails. "These are complaints sent directly to the general email address. They were never forwarded to me. They were archived and ignored." She read one aloud. "I made a reservation 3 weeks ago for my mother's 70th birthday. When we arrived, we were told the table had been given away. I watched 4 other groups get seated while we waited. All of them were white. We left after 40 minutes. I will never return." Her voice stayed level. controlled, but the weight of the words pressed down on the room like a physical thing. She set the email down. This was sent on September 3rd. I didn't see it until October 29th. That's 56 days of my business operating against everything I built it to be. Simone stepped beside her. We've identified 17 documented incidents in the past 6 months. These are only the ones where guests followed up in writing. Roland cleared his throat. Based on industry averages, for every written complaint, there are approximately 12 incidents that go unreported. The math hung in the air. 17 documented cases, 204 potential incidents, 204 people turned away, ignored, dismissed, humiliated. A server near the kitchen covered her mouth. Her eyes shone with tears. Zareen looked at her. What's your name? The server's voice came out small. Brianna. Did you know this was happening? Brianna nodded slowly. I saw things. I didn't know how bad it was. Did you say anything? Brianna looked down. No. Zareen didn't respond right away. She let the silence stretch. Let Brianna feel the weight of her own answer. Then she said, You're one of the ones staying. Brianna's head snapped up. What? You're staying, Zareen repeated, because you just admitted the truth. And that's where change starts. Relief flooded Brianna's face. She wiped her eyes quickly, nodding. Zareen turned back to the folder, pulled out another document. This one was different, thicker. Legal-sized paper with dense paragraphs and bullet points. This, she said, is the new operational policy. Every staff member will sign it. Every new hire will be trained on it. And every violation will result in immediate review. She read the first section aloud. All guests will be greeted within 30 seconds of arrival, regardless of appearance, attire, or perceived economic status. Reservations will be honored or explained with documented cause. Walk-ins will be accommodated when space allows, with transparent wait time estimates. She flipped the page. Staff will not use coded language to describe guests. Terms like off-brand, not our demographic, or doesn't fit the vibe are strictly prohibited. Any guest complaint regarding discrimination will be escalated immediately to ownership. She looked up. This isn't optional. This is the standard. A guest near the bar spoke up. He was black, mid-30s, wearing a polo shirt and jeans. Ms. Cole, I've been coming here for a year. I've had good experiences, but I'm always afraid the next time will be different. Zareen nodded. I know, and that's the problem. You shouldn't have to wonder if you'll be treated with dignity. It should be guaranteed. The man's jaw tightened. Thank you. Zareen pulled out the final document, a single sheet of paper with 6 names typed in bold. These are the staff members being terminated. They'll receive severance and outplacement support, but they will not work here again. She read the names. Blaine Whitmore, General Manager, Stephanie Carr, Hostess, Daniel Price, Assistant Manager, Lauren Hayes, Senior Server, Marcus Yates, Floor Supervisor, Cole Reyes, Head of Security. Each name landed like a stone dropping into still water, ripples spreading outward. A guest gasped. Another shook his head. Someone whispered, 6 people. Jesus. Zareen set the paper down. I didn't want to do this. I wanted to believe that training, conversation, and second chances would be enough. She looked around the room. But some behaviors aren't mistakes. They're choices. And when those choices harm people, there have to be consequences. Roland stepped forward. The audit will continue over the weekend. By Monday morning, we'll have a full report on operational gaps, staffing needs, and policy implementation strategies. Simone added, any current staff member who wishes to participate in bias training and remain employed will have that opportunity. But participation is mandatory, not optional. Zareen's phone buzzed on the bar. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Simone glanced at the screen. Her expression tightened. Zareen, you need to see this. Zareen picked up the phone. The screen showed a Twitter thread. The original post had been retweeted 18,000 times in the last 30 minutes. The video showed the moment Cole's hand landed on her arm. The moment Blaine laughed. The moment she walked out. The caption read, Black business owner humiliated and removed from her own restaurant. This is America. The comments were a war zone. Some called her a hero. Others called the whole thing staged. A few said she was overreacting. Many shared their own stories of being turned away, ignored, profiled, and at the bottom, a new tweet from an account with a blue check mark. Blaine speaks. I was wrongfully terminated tonight for doing my job. The full story will come out. Stay tuned. Zareen's grip tightened on the phone. Simone saw her expression. Don't engage. Let him talk. We have the evidence. Zareen set the phone down. He's going to spin this. Let him, Roland said. The truth doesn't need spin. But Zareen knew better. The truth needed volume. It needed reach. It needed people willing to amplify it over the noise of denial and deflection. She looked at the guests still seated in the restaurant, at the staff standing near the kitchen, at the people who'd stayed through the chaos, the confrontation, the reckoning. I need to say something, she announced. The room quieted. Zareen stepped into the center of the dining area. No microphone, no stage, just her voice and the people listening. Tonight wasn't about revenge, it was about accountability. I didn't fire 6 people because I was angry. I fired them because they created a culture that told paying customers they didn't belong. She paused. Let the words settle. This restaurant was supposed to be a place where everyone felt welcome, where food brought people together instead of keeping them apart, where the only thing that mattered was whether you were hungry and willing to share a meal. Her voice grew stronger, but somewhere along the way it became something else. It became a place where your skin color determined whether you got a table, where your clothes decided if you were worth serving, where unspoken rules mattered more than written policy. A few people nodded, others wiped their eyes. I can't undo the harm that's been done. I can't give back the time people wasted standing outside, hoping to be seen. I can't erase the humiliation they felt when they were turned away. She looked around the room. But I can make sure it doesn't happen again. And that starts tonight. Applause broke out. Not polite applause. Real, sustained, emotional applause. Zareen didn't smile, didn't bow. She just stood there, holding the weight of what came next. When the applause faded, she spoke again. If you've been turned away from this restaurant in the past 6 months, I want you to come back. Your meal is on the house. No questions asked, no receipts required. Just come back. A woman near the door stood up. Ms. Cole, I was turned away in September. I'd like to come back. Zareen nodded. Then come back, Monday night. Bring your family. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Another guest stood. Then another. Then 3 more. People who'd been silent all night suddenly had stories, experiences, moments they'd buried because they didn't think anyone would care. Zareen listened to all of them. She didn't interrupt, didn't defend, didn't explain. She just listened, because that's what she should have been doing all along. When the last person finished speaking, Zareen looked at Simone. We're going to need a bigger reservation book, Simone smiled. I'll handle it. Roland checked his watch. It's almost 8. We should wrap up the initial review and reconvene Monday morning. Zareen nodded. She was exhausted, emotionally drained, running on adrenaline and sheer willpower. But she wasn't done yet. She turned to the remaining staff. If you're still here Monday, I expect you to show up ready to rebuild. This isn't going to be easy. People are going to be watching, judging, waiting for us to fail. She met each person's eyes. But we're not going to fail because we're going to do the work. Not just the work of serving food, but the work of earning trust. Brianna raised her hand. Ms. Cole, what if people don't forgive us? Zareen's expression softened. Then we keep showing up anyway. Forgiveness isn't owed, it's earned. And earning it takes time. She picked up her phone, checked the time. 8:07 p.m. 1 hour and 50 minutes since she'd been denied entry. 1 hour and 50 minutes since everything changed. She looked at the folder still sitting on the bar, at the evidence stacked inside, at the proof that her instincts had been right. This wasn't paranoia. It wasn't overreaction. It was reality. And reality didn't care about comfort or convenience. Simone touched her arm gently. You did good tonight. Zareen exhaled. It doesn't feel good yet. It will. Zareen hoped she was right, but hope wasn't enough. She needed systems, policies, people who understood that hospitality meant everyone, not just the people who looked like they belonged. Her phone buzzed again. Another notification, another tweet, another person weighing in on something they hadn't witnessed. She turned off her phone, handed it to Simone. "Hold this. I don't want to see it until Monday." Simone took the phone without argument. Roland gathered his papers. "I'll have the preliminary audit report ready by Sunday evening. We'll meet Monday at 9 a.m. Zareen nodded. "Thank you." He left through the front doors, briefcase in hand. The restaurant was quieter now. Guests finishing their meals, staff cleaning tables, the night winding down. But outside, through the windows, Zareen could see people gathering. A small crowd, maybe 20 people. Some holding phones, others holding signs. One sign read, "We stand with Zareen." Another, "Accountability now." Zareen's chest tightened. She hadn't asked for this, hadn't wanted to be a symbol or a movement. She just wanted to run her restaurant with integrity. But sometimes integrity demanded visibility. And visibility came with a cost. She walked to the front doors, pushed them open. The crowd turned toward her. For a moment, no one spoke. Then someone started clapping. Then someone else. Within seconds, the entire crowd was applauding. Zareen raised one hand. The applause stopped. "Thank you," she said quietly. "But this isn't about me. It's about all of us." A woman in the front called out, "What happens next?" Zareen looked at her. "We rebuild. We do better. And we hold each other accountable." The woman nodded. "We're with you." Zareen felt something shift in her chest. Not relief, not victory, responsibility. She was no longer just a business owner. She was a symbol of what happened when you refused to stay silent. And that meant every move she made from here on out would be watched, analyzed, criticized. She stepped back inside, closed the doors, turned to Simone. "I need to go home." Simone nodded. "I'll lock up. Get some rest." Zareen grabbed her cap from the bar, pulled it low over her braids, walked toward the back exit. As she passed the kitchen, she saw Brianna wiping down tables. Brianna looked up. "Ms. Cole?" Zareen stopped. "Yeah? Thank you for giving me another chance." Zareen studied her for a moment. "Don't thank me. Just do better." Brianna nodded. "I will." Zareen pushed through the back door into the alley. The air was cooler now, the city settling into its night rhythm. She leaned against the brick wall, closed her eyes, let herself feel everything she'd been holding back. The anger, the hurt, the exhaustion, the fear that this wouldn't be enough, that people would forget, that the cycle would repeat. Her phone buzzed in Simone's possession inside. But out here in the quiet, Zareen had a moment to herself, a moment to remember why she'd started this in the first place. Because food was supposed to bring people together, and she'd be damned if she let anyone use it to keep them apart. She opened her eyes, pushed off the wall, and walked toward her car, parked 3 blocks away. Monday would come soon enough, and with it, the real work would begin. Chapter 5. The email arrived at 6:43 a.m. on Monday. Zareen sat at her kitchen table, coffee untouched, laptop open. She'd been awake since 4, unable to sleep, running through every possible scenario for the week ahead. The subject line read, "Preliminary audit results, confidential." She clicked it open. Roland's report was 37 pages long, charts, data, highlighted sections in red. She started reading. By page 3, her coffee had gone cold. By page 10, her jaw was clenched. By page 20, she was taking notes. The findings were worse than she'd thought. Discriminatory practices weren't isolated to the front desk. They ran through every level of operation. The kitchen had a policy of prioritizing orders from high-value tables. High value meant tables where guests looked like they'd leave big tips, which meant white, well-dressed, speaking without accents. Black guests' orders were consistently delayed by an average of 12 minutes compared to white guests ordering the same dishes. The bar had a practice of offering complimentary drinks to regulars. Regulars meant people Blaine personally recognized and approved. In 6 months, not a single black guest had received a complimentary drink. The reservation system had a hidden flag feature. Staff could mark reservations as priority or standard. Priority reservations got better tables, faster service, and more attention. The criteria for priority status was never written down, but the pattern was clear. White guests were flagged priority at 3 times the rate of black guests. Zareen's hands shook as she scrolled through the data. This wasn't just Blaine. This was systemic. Her phone rang. Simone. Did you read it? Simone's voice was tight. I'm still reading it. Page 32. Look at page 32. Zareen jumped ahead. The section was titled Financial Impact Analysis. Her eyes scanned the numbers. Revenue from black customers had declined 41% over the past year. Not because fewer black customers existed in the neighborhood, but because they stopped coming back. Lost revenue, approximately $340,000 annually. Zareen closed her eyes. Jesus. They weren't just being racist, Simone said. They were killing the business. Zareen opened her eyes, stared at the numbers again. How did I miss this? Because you trusted them to do their jobs. That's not a failure. That's delegation. Delegation without oversight is negligence. Simone didn't argue. Zareen scrolled to the final page. Recommendations. Roland had outlined a 10-point plan. Bias training, transparent reservation systems, anonymous complaint channels, diverse hiring practices, regular audits, third-party oversight, the cost, $85,000 up front, plus ongoing operational changes that would reduce profit margins by an estimated 8%. Zareen didn't hesitate. She typed a response. Approve all recommendations. Begin implementation immediately. She hit send. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're making a mistake. People are going to see through this. She deleted it. Another text. You're going to lose everything. She blocked the number. Her laptop chimed. Another email. This one from a local news station. Request for interview. Black business owner fires staff over discrimination. She forwarded it to Simone. 3 more interview requests came in within the next 10 minutes. Then a call from a podcast. Then a message from a journalist at a national paper. Zareen closed her laptop. She wasn't ready to talk to the media yet. She didn't have the words, didn't have the energy to explain, defend, justify. She just wanted to fix her restaurant. At 8:47 a.m., she pulled into the parking lot behind the restaurant. 3 news vans were parked on the street. Reporters stood outside, cameras ready. Zareen parked in the back, walked through the alley entrance. Inside, the restaurant was quiet, tables clean, lights dim. Simone was waiting near the bar. So was Roland, and 3 other people Zareen didn't recognize. Simone gestured toward them. This is the interim management team. They'll handle day-to-day operations while we search for permanent hires. The first person stepped forward, a black woman in her 50s, gray locks pulled back, sharp eyes. My name is Dr. Lorraine Vicks. I specialize in organizational culture reform. I'll be overseeing staff training and policy implementation. The second person introduced himself, a younger man, Latino, with a tablet already in hand. Mateo Ruiz, operations manager. I'll handle scheduling, vendor relations, and logistics. The third was a white woman with red hair and a no-nonsense expression. Cassidy Klein, guest relations. I'll be managing reservations, complaints, and community outreach. Zareen shook each of their hands. Thank you for being here. Dr. Vicks nodded. This is important work. We're honored to be part of it. Roland cleared his throat. We've scheduled staff training for Wednesday through Friday. All current employees will attend. Those who don't attend will be terminated. Mateo added, we're also implementing a new reservation system. Transparent wait times. No hidden flags. Every guest treated equally. Cassidy pulled up a document on her tablet. I've drafted a public statement. It acknowledges the harm, outlines the changes, and invites the community back. It goes out this afternoon. Zareen scanned the statement. It was good, direct, honest. She approved it. Simone checked her watch. We have a staff meeting in 10 minutes. You ready? Zareen nodded. The remaining staff arrived at 9. 14 people. Servers, cooks, bartenders, dishwashers. They filled the dining room, some sitting, some standing, all watching Zareen with a mix of hope and fear. Zareen stood in front of them. No podium, no notes. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, she began. What happened here was wrong, and some of you participated. Some of you stayed silent, and some of you didn't even realize it was happening. She paused. Let that sink in. But you're still here, and that means you get a chance to do better. She gestured toward Dr. Vicks. This is Dr. Lorraine Vicks. She's going to lead bias training starting Wednesday. Attendance is mandatory. If you miss a session, you're fired. If you refuse to participate, you're fired. If you complete the training and continue discriminatory behavior, you're fired. A server raised his hand. Ms. Cole, what if we make a mistake? Then you own it, Zareen said. You apologize, you learn, you adjust. Mistakes are human. Patterns are choices. Another server spoke up. What about the people who were fired? Are they going to sue? Simone answered. They may try, but we have documentation. We're prepared. Dr. Vicks stepped forward. I want to be clear about what this training will involve, and it's not going to be comfortable. We're going to talk about implicit bias, microaggressions, and systemic racism. Some of you are going to feel defensive. Some of you are going to feel guilty. That's normal. But you need to sit with those feelings, not run from them. A cook near the back crossed his arms. I've worked here for 3 years. I never did anything wrong. Dr. Vicks looked at him. Did you ever see something wrong and say nothing? The cook's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. That's what we're going to address, Dr. Vicks said. Silence isn't neutrality, it's complicity. Zareen watched the room. Some people nodded. Others looked uncomfortable. A few looked angry. She understood. Change was uncomfortable, but discomfort wasn't an excuse to avoid it. Mateo took over, outlining the new operational procedures. Transparent reservation protocols, standardized service times, anonymous feedback systems. Cassidy explained the community outreach plan, free meals for previously turned away guests, partnerships with local organizations, public apologies. By the time the meeting ended, it was nearly 11. The staff filed out slowly, some talking in low voices, others silent. Zareen stayed behind with Simone and Roland. How do you think it went? Roland asked. Some of them get it, Zareen said. Some don't, yet. They will, Dr. Vicks said. She lingered near the bar. Or they won't. Either way, you'll know who belongs here. Zareen nodded. Her phone buzzed. Another text. This one from a name she recognized. Blaine. We need to talk. Zareen showed the message to Simone. Don't respond, Simone said immediately. I'm not. But Blaine didn't stop. Another text. I know you think you did the right thing, but you're going to regret this. Then another. People are talking. You're not going to survive this. Zareen blocked his number. Simone's phone rang. She answered, listened, then hung up. Her face was pale. What? Zareen asked. Blaine just posted a video. It's going viral. Zareen's stomach dropped. What kind of video? He's claiming you set him up, that you fabricated evidence to cover your own mismanagement, that you're using race as a weapon? Zareen felt cold. Show me. Simone pulled up the video on her phone. Blaine sat in what looked like a home office, suit jacket on, expression somber. He spoke directly to the camera. I worked at that restaurant for 2 years. I built the clientele. I created systems. I made it profitable, and I was fired without cause because the owner wanted a scapegoat for her own failures. He leaned forward, voice earnest. I'm not saying racism doesn't exist, but what happened to me wasn't accountability. It was revenge. The video ended. It had been viewed 43,000 times in 2 hours. Zareen handed the phone back. Let him talk. Zareen, he's getting traction. People believe him. Some people will always believe him, Zareen said, because his story is easier than the truth. We need to respond. We will, with results. Simone looked like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. Roland spoke up. The audit stands. The evidence stands. Let the facts speak. Zareen walked to the front windows, looked out at the street. The news vans were still there, reporters milling around, waiting for a statement. She wasn't ready to give them one. Not yet. First, she had to make sure the changes actually happened, because talk was easy. Action was hard, and she'd built her entire life on action. She turned back to the room. We opened for dinner service tonight. New policies, new standards, and if anyone doesn't like it, they know where the door is. Dr. Vick smiled. That's the energy we need. Mateo nodded. I'll make sure the kitchen is ready. Cassidy added, I've already started reaching out to community members. We'll have guests tonight. Zareen took a breath. Then let's get to work. Chapter 6. The first guest walked in at 5:32 p.m. She was black, mid-40s, wearing a blue dress and carrying a leather purse. She hesitated at the door, eyes scanning the restaurant like she was deciding whether to stay. Cassidy greeted her immediately. Welcome. Do you have a reservation? The woman shook her head. No, I was here before. In September, I was turned away. Cassidy's expression softened. Then your meal tonight is on us. Please come in. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? Cassidy led her to a table by the window, the best seat in the house. Zareen watched from the bar. She'd been there since 4, overseeing setup, checking details, making sure every element was perfect. The restaurant looked the same as it had on Friday. Same tables, same lighting, same exposed brick. But something was different. The air felt lighter, the energy less tense. Or maybe that was just hope. At 6:15, another guest arrived, then 2 more. Then a family of 5. By 7 p.m., the dining room was half full. Zareen moved between tables, greeting guests, checking in, making sure everyone felt welcome. A man at table 7 looked up as she approached. Ms. Cole? Yes? I saw the video. Both videos. Yours and Blaine's. He paused. I just want you to know I believe you. Zareen's throat tightened. Thank you. My sister was turned away from here last year. She didn't make a complaint, just never came back. He looked around the restaurant. But I'm here now, because I think what you're doing matters. Zareen nodded. She didn't trust herself to speak. The man smiled. The food better be good, though, she laughed, a real laugh. It will be. At table 12, a couple flagged her down. The woman spoke first. We're not from here. We're visiting from Atlanta. But we saw the story and wanted to support. We appreciate that, Zareen said. The woman hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course. How did you stay so calm in the video when he was... She trailed off. Zareen understood the question. Because anger doesn't change systems. Strategy does. The woman nodded slowly. That's powerful. Zareen moved on to the next table, and the next. By 8 p.m., the restaurant was full. The staff moved efficiently, no delays, no mistakes. Every guest treated with the same level of care and attention. Dr. Vick stood near the host stand, observing, taking notes. Zareen joined her. What do you think? I think it's a start, Dr. Vick said. The real test will be consistency. Can they do this every night, when the cameras are gone? When no one's watching? They will, Zareen said, or they won't work here. Dr. Vick smiled. Good. At 8:47, the front doors opened again. A group of 6 walked in, all black, dressed in everything from suits to hoodies. One of them stepped forward. We heard you're making things right. Wanted to see for ourselves. Cassidy checked the reservation book. I can get you seated in about 15 minutes. The man nodded. We'll wait. They moved to the bar, ordered drinks, talked and laughed while they waited. Zareen watched them. This was what she'd wanted from the beginning. People gathering, sharing space, feeling like they belonged. Her phone buzzed. She checked it. A notification from Twitter. Blaine's video had been viewed over 200,000 times, but underneath it, another thread was gaining traction. A video compilation, clips from guests who dined at the restaurant tonight, testimonials, stories of being welcomed, fed, seen. The caption read, "This is what accountability looks like. Not perfect, but trying." It had 60,000 views and climbing. Zareen put her phone away. She didn't need validation from strangers on the internet. She needed the people in this room to feel safe. At 9:30, the dinner rush started to wind down. Guests lingered over dessert. Servers cleared tables. The kitchen began cleanup. Zareen stood near the back hallway, watching. Mateo approached. We did it. First night with new systems. 0 complaints. That's not the goal, Zareen said. The goal is 50 nights, 100 nights, 1,000 nights. Mateo nodded. You're right, but tonight's still a win. Zareen didn't disagree. At 10:15, the last guest left. The staff gathered for a quick debrief. Dr. Vicks led it. You all did well tonight, but I want to talk about what happens tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. She looked around the room. Consistency isn't exciting. It's not viral. It's just work. Every single day. Are you ready for that? The staff nodded. Some looked tired. Others looked energized, but they all looked committed. Zareen stepped forward. I want to thank you. Tonight mattered, not because it was perfect, but because it was different. She paused. We're going to keep doing this. New policies, new standards. And if it gets hard, we're going to push through. Because the people we serve deserve better than what they've been getting. A server raised her hand. Miss Cole, what if Blaine keeps attacking you? What if people believe him? Then they believe him, Zareen said. I can't control that. I can only control what happens in this building. She looked around the room. And in this building, we're going to do the right thing. Every single time. The staff started clapping, slow at first, then louder. Zareen didn't smile, but she nodded once. Acknowledgement, appreciation. When the applause faded, people started leaving, filing out through the back exit, heading home. Zareen stayed behind, walked through the empty dining room, straightened a chair, adjusted a table setting. Simone appeared beside her. You should go home. Get some rest. I will, in a minute. Simone studied her. You okay? Zareen didn't answer right away. Was she okay? She'd fired 6 people, faced public scrutiny, spent tens of thousands of dollars on reforms. Her business had been exposed as discriminatory, her leadership questioned. But tonight, black guests had walked through her doors and felt welcome. That had to count for something. I'm getting there, Zareen said finally. Simone squeezed her shoulder. That's enough for now. She left. Zareen stood alone in the dining room. The lights were dim, the city outside quiet. She pulled out her phone, opened her messages, scrolled past the threats, the hate, the doubt. Found the ones that mattered. Thank you for doing what so many won't. You gave my family a place to belong. This is what leadership looks like. She closed her phone, walked to the front doors, locked them, turned off the lights, and stepped outside. The street was empty now, no reporters, no cameras. Just the city settling into its late-night rhythm. Zareen walked to her car, got in, sat in the silence for a moment. Then she started the engine. Drove home. Tomorrow she'd wake up and do it all over again, because change wasn't a moment. It was 1,000 small choices, and she was choosing to keep going. The restaurant would open tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. New guests would come. Some would be skeptical, some would be supportive, but all of them would be welcomed. No codes, no barriers, no hidden rules, just food and people, and the simple act of sharing space. That's what she'd built this for, and that's what she'd protect, no matter what it cost. Zareen pulled into her driveway, turned off the engine, looked at her house, dark, quiet, waiting. She got out of the car, walked to the front door, unlocked it, stepped inside, and finally, for the first time in 4 days, she let herself breathe. The work wasn't done. It would never be done. But tonight, she'd taken a step, and tomorrow, she'd take another. That was enough. What would you fight for if everything was on the line? This is what real change looks like: uncomfortable, messy, and necessary. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you stories that inspire action, spark conversation, and remind us that courage isn't loud. It's consistent. Drop a comment below and tell us about a time you stood up for what was right, even when it was hard. Your story might be the one that inspires someone else to act. Let's build a community that doesn't just watch change happen. We make it happen. See you in the next story.